my tail. I did the Iditarod trail.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Husky Talk. Today we have the honor of speaking with a true legend in the world of dog mushing. Despite facing difficult challenges this year, his grit and determination helped him become the first and only six-time Iditarod champion. Please welcome to the show, Dallas Seavey.
Hello, Dallas. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Congratulations on winning this year's Iditarod. Can you walk us through the emotions you felt as you crossed the finish line for your sixth championship?
No, this was a really exciting one for me, I think. I don't know that there will ever be a Iditarod win that's as memorable or as emotional as the first one. No, because that's, I think, the time that we realized we were actually capable of winning the Iditarod, right? And I had dreamt about that since I was 5 years old. And the amount of pride I felt for that dog team and what they accomplished was tremendous. And then there's been a number of wins along the way, and each one is unique and special. But I think this one is, second only to the first win, the most special one for me. Like, we actually did something that hadn't been done before, right? And I think that was really, really special. I would definitely felt just this level of excitement and enthusiasm. And again, that overwhelming sense of pride in the dog team and what they had accomplished. But also, this was a very difficult year for us. We had a lot of challenges along the way. And it seemed like every time things started going well, some major issue would happen, some tragedy would happen. And I felt, I think, particularly happy and excited and proud that we were able to end the year on a good note. That despite all these challenges that we had to overcome, we got it done. And I felt like, when I say this, I'm thinking about all the people and all the dogs that worked so hard to be able to get this team to the starting line. I got a lot of people that helped me, and I felt like we had, brought it home for them, if that makes sense. So I was very emotional finish. Let's just put it that way. And again, probably only second to the first one.
Training for the Iditarod can be very tough. Can you share some insights into the challenges you faced during your training this year and how you overcame them?
Yeah, so this year, like I said, was a very difficult year. There's the normal challenges we expect to face. We know that it's going to be a lot of hard work. We know that, we're going to have to put on 3,000, 4,000, maybe 4,500 miles of training on this dog team. And that means chasing good snow conditions around the state, traveling with the dogs, and the amount of work that goes into getting ready to go do one training trip is just insane. We're going to cut up thousands of pounds of meat, or certainly hundreds of pounds of meat, and package up all the straw and the booties and the dog food, because we try to make each of these training trips feel like a race, both for me and the dogs. So there's a lot of preparation, and then we have to drive sometimes 5-6 hours to find good snow, and then actually go out there and spend the next 3 to 5 days not sleeping, working really hard, training the dogs, competing with good or tough conditions, wind, snow, all that stuff. So there's a lot of sleep deprivation, a lot of hard work, but that's the life of a musher. That's what we expect to face. The things we don't expect to face are, on one of those trips, we finally got out there, and finally you're out mushing and all the work is done to get ready to do this trip. And we take off, and I had myself and then 2 dog teams right behind me, and one of those teams got hit by a snow machine with a drunk driver, which was just insanely tragic and just terrible. It ended up, killing 2 dogs, and we had 3 more that had very serious injuries. And then all winter, just trying to keep those guys going. It took so much work every single day, having to change bandages and working with these dogs, and it was just touch and go. And the amount of kind of emotional stress where you don't know if they're going to make it or not, that was a really tough thing. And that happened early in the year, and it just made it very difficult. And nothing else that bad, of course, but it seemed like all year, as soon as things are like, all right, it's going smoothly now, it'd go about a week and then something else would happen. And so it's just a very tough year that way, in addition to the normal stress of training and preparing a dog team, also having, just it seemed like calamities around every corner.
Losing a dog is heartbreaking, and your experience of losing two 2 during training must have been difficult. How do you and your dogs cope with such a loss and still continue to train?
That's a great question. That's one that I felt like I spent a lot of time contemplating this year and also trying to articulate to the people that work with me. Because for me to succeed, I know I'm the one that's getting to have this conversation with you guys today, and I'm the one that is lucky enough to be called the 6-time champion. But I know that's not just me. There's a whole group of people, a whole team of dogs that have to work really hard, and all of them have to be at their very best. And I'm just the one that's lucky enough to get handed the trophy when it's done, right? So when I'm out there, I feel like we're representing our team, our family, our crew of people, which I consider my family. We're the one representing them. And that's what I earlier talking about the win. I felt particularly happy to be able to give them that win because they deserved it. They worked hard. So trying to explain that to our people, because every person handles that tragedy differently. So I've got to make sure that each of them, my human helpers, has a good day too. And so how do we have a good day after we just lost, 2 of our best friends, and we got 3 more that we don't know if they're going to make it? Whopper only has 3 legs now, and the other 2, they have their leg, but it's not ever going to be the same. And I think the best way I came up with to try to explain this is it's our job as the caretakers of these dogs to make sure that they get to live every day to the best of their ability, that they have a good day. And Whopper may only have 3 legs now, but he's loved every single day of his life. He gets to go out and do these things that he loves to do. We have to honor the ones that are still able to go to train, the ones that are still alive, and give them their best day. They still deserve that. So it'd be super easy for us to say this terrible thing happened. I don't want to do anything else, but that's not fair to the ones that are still there. They want to go. They want to run. They want to see what's around the next corner. They want to have their exciting day. And that's what we owe to them. So we're going to go out and continue to give each dog their best day. We'll take every measure we can to make sure that's as safe as possible. But I don't think we want to live our life in a way that we're always in fear, afraid of something bad happening. It's going to take some risks. And I'm not saying being irresponsible, but some things in life take risk. When we drive to school or to work each day, there is an inherent risk. So to live responsibly, but live your life to the fullest, at least when we die, which is one thing we all know that is going to happen sooner or later. Make sure that life is full of experiences, full of things that we can be proud of, and look back at a life that you're proud of having lived. That means making good and honorable decisions wherever you can. And sometimes we're going to make mistakes, and you got to be able to work past that and through that and learn from those mistakes and, be determined to make better decisions tomorrow. That's all part of life. So I guess in the end, how you power through it is to really bear down and make sure that what you're doing is the right thing and that it's the best thing. And what's the most honorable way we can move forward from here? These dogs love mushing. Let's keep giving them that opportunity to do that. And I think the people we have working with us are really good at doing that. And those dogs deserve the best people they can possibly get to take them out and have great experiences and go see what's around the next corner.
We see that you were homeschooled. How do you think your homeschooling experience has influenced your approach to mushing?
Well, my homeschooling experience, I think, was unique. So growing up, the reason we were homeschooled, there were schools close by and everything else, but my dad, my family needed help taking care of dogs, training dogs. So a lot of my schooling was taking care of dogs. Now, I think I will say that we spent a couple hours every day doing the traditional reading, writing, arithmetic, basic school stuff. But also my parents did a really good job of incorporating education into what we were doing. So we weren't given the answers. For example, if we were going to say, be packing for one of these training trips and we were going to be gone for a certain amount of time, the task would be, we need to get all the food ready to go. Do that. Not here's a list of exactly this many pounds of this item and exactly this many pounds of this item. That meant I had to figure out, okay, we have 24 dogs going on this trip. We're going to be gone for 2 weeks. They're going to be eating this much. And all right, we're going to add a 10% buffer in there. And then going through that whole process for all the food items, right? So that education was worked into what we were doing, which for me, as a young person, I think really put a fine point on why it's important to know these things. I would challenge you to find anybody who has learned algebra and not at some point asked, why do I need to know this? Well, at some point you do need to know this, and it helps you solve problems. So I was excited to learn new ways to solve a problem because the problem existed, and my job was to solve the problem of figuring out what we needed, or how do you figure out this angle when we're building a dog sled? We need these two sticks to come in like this. And so I was excited to find that there was a way to solve that problem, that somebody else had already thought about that. And so we learned how to figure out a problem, if that makes sense, to find a way to solve the problem. And then in that way, I was excited to discover that this was already figured out by way of, algebra or some other method, mathematically or otherwise. So as to your exact question, though, how has it helped us in mushing? I think problem solving is one of the things I did learn how to do well from the type of school that I had. And now I've chosen to live a life where we have a lot of questions that need answering, right? I like solving the puzzles. I like figuring out how to solve this problem as much as actually solving the problem itself. And then finally, a big part of my education was taking care of sled dogs, which is pretty much what I do now. So it was kind of like a trade school in that way, where you're learning a skill that I have now turned into my life or my career.
The bond between a musher and their dog must be very strong. Can you share some highlights of that special connection you have with your team?
Sure. It is particularly or very strong. I feel like a lot of people have pets, whether that be a cat or a dog or a fish, or even a lizard. But those pets, most times when we have a pet dog, and I've had house pets, you have your normal day and you go do your work and you come home and maybe you commiserate with your animal. Maybe they curl up on your lap when you're watching a movie and it's a comfort item. But that bond is only so close because we don't go through a challenge with them. We maybe share that challenge with them afterwards. And that's where the sled dogs is so much closer, is we have a challenge. We have to cover this 1,000 miles of trail, or we have to get through this particularly bad storm or cross this open river. We go through that together, and that builds trust. It builds kind of an understanding and a relationship to do the things we do. You have to understand that dog at the very core of themselves. You have to know how they're going to experience a situation, not just how did I experience it, but how did they experience it? What was challenging for them? It might be something different than that was challenging for me. So respecting that they are different than me, which is true of any two people or any two living things on this planet, but it's even more of a challenge because they're a different species, right? So not only, their whole life experience is different than ours. They have 4 legs, I have 2, right? So it is different. So we get the opportunity to understand them in those tough situations, and we rely on each other. And that's where that bond really grows close, is that I need them to do what they do best, or else I don't survive, or else I don't succeed. And inversely, they need me to do what I do best. I need to care for them. I need to feed them. I need to give them everything they need to be able to succeed. So to do that, I have to understand them. And I think probably the other places that you might see that sort of bond or that sort of connection is other places where humans rely on their dog. So think maybe a seeing eye dog. Can you imagine if to be able to move, to be able to live your life to the fullest, that dog has to be able to do their job? That's real trust. Or maybe in a military dog or a police dog, where your life depends on that dog doing their job. That's where you're going to see those super close bonds and connections. And one place that I saw that kind of really come out was in 2014. We had a very challenging Iditarod that year. And at the very last run of the race between White Mountain and Nome, we got hit with an incredibly strong storm. It was blowing, gusting well over 90 miles an hour. And it kept knocking all the dogs down and knocking me over. And then once we were flat on the ground, the wind was so strong, it was just pushing us across the ice. And time and again, we'd get blown down, knocked over, pushed, tangled up. When the gust of wind would finally let up a little bit, and now it's only blowing 45 miles an hour. I lead dog Beetle. I say, Beetle, you ready, buddy? He'd stand up and lean into that harness. And his confidence, his belief that he could do this stemmed in part from me telling him that he could. He trusted me that, hey, if he says we can go, we can go. But Beetle would stand up, and then each of the dogs behind him would see him and say, hey, if the boss says we can, and Beetle, the old guy on the team, says we can, then we must be able to do this too. And they'd all stand up. And all of a sudden, they'd all be on their feet again, and we'd make it another 100 yards before the next gust of wind knocked us down. And he did that for hours, just again and again. And it really, I've been doing this my whole life, but that was a moving experience, and it showed me just how much trust and how strong that bond is. And I would never have been able to make it through that storm without Beetle and his faith and trust that we can do this. And it's a circle, right? When I reaffirm that every time, he becomes more confident. When he stands up every time, I become more confident, and the whole team benefits from it. So it's an incredible bond, and I wouldn't choose any other animal to want to experience life with. I love having that connection and that relationship and that trust in them and that care for them. That all takes a really close attachment. And that's what makes losing one of them so much harder, right? It's because you have to have that close bond. It's so close to them. And I think going back to our earlier question, how do you move past it? One of the things that happens when you lose one is it hurts so bad you don't ever want to have that close of a connection again. And I think that's what I was trying to articulate to our people, and even to myself, is you can't be afraid of it being painful and not having that close connection. Use that to recognize how strong of a bond we do have, and build it again and build it stronger next time, and be a big enough person to handle when the time comes that it's time for them to move on, and it's going to hurt, and just be okay with that.
So beyond the physical challenges, what mental challenges do you face on the trail?
Oh, there's a million. One of the biggest mental challenges, I think, is we have a lot of decisions to make on the trail, and they're all high stakes decisions. We've talked a little bit about how much goes into training the dogs and building the relationships with the dogs and all the hard work that goes into it. There's also a lot of money that goes into it. And more importantly, it's not just my effort. I have so many people that also put all their effort and faith in me and faith in the team, and they worked really hard to do this. So when we get on the race and we have these tough decisions to make, there's a lot of pressure on that decision. We only get one big race each year, right? It's not like some other sports where there's another tournament next weekend or another match next weekend. We get one shot. So each decision has a tremendous amount of pressure on it. And I think psychologically, that's one of the hardest things, is you really want to make the right decision. And it's tough. You might be looking at two choices, and neither one of them, it's not a good choice and a bad choice. It's two choices that have pros and cons. And so trying to make that decision and doing that in a way that we can live with it, even when we make the wrong decision. And that's kind of comes to trying to make your decisions based on the right principles. Am I making this decision because it's the easy choice? Or am I making this decision because it's actually legitimately the right choice, or because I want to win the race when that might not be the right thing for the team? So I really try hard, knowing that we're not going to get all these choices right. I try really, really hard to make sure that I thought about every aspect. I didn't neglect to think about a certain portion, that the driving principle of the decision was something that was the right driving principle. Am I making this decision based on the right motives? And then if it does, and when it does, some decisions will be wrong. You can make the wrong decision for the right reason, and that's a lot easier to live with.
There were a large number of kids that participated in the junior Iditarod this year. As a seasoned musher, what advice would you give these young mushers?
I think the most important thing that we can learn from this sport, and to advance us in the sport, is kind of on the heels of what we were just talking about, making decisions based on the right reasons, and remembering what this sport is about. This sport is about traveling well with dogs. So yes, it's a race. Yes, we get recognized when we do well in that race, and it's really easy to put that as a priority. So when we're making a tough decision, this is maybe the faster way to do it, or the more aggressive way to do it. But that's sometimes the wrong thing to be making the choice on. We need to make the choice of what's the best thing for this team. If I can make the decision that's best for my team and make sure that they have a good day, and you start linking one good day to the next, the good race will take care of itself. So it's easy to get wrapped up in the racing and the competition, but don't ever forget about what the sport's about, and that is taking good care of a dog team. And you do that well, and you're going to have a great career. And you'll look back at many good races. And some of them you may end up in second or third or fifth or last. It doesn't matter. I've had many races where, a couple at least, where I finished fourth in the race. And the reason that we finished fourth, the reason that we were still in the top 5, is because we recognized that this was not a first place team. And we're going to do what's right by this team, and we're going to get them to the finish line as quickly as possible in whatever position that might be. And so sometimes it means letting go of first so that you can do what's right for your team and still finish fourth. Had I, kind of deluded myself into thinking that that was a winning team, we may not have finished the race, or we may have been in last place. So take care of your dog team, take care of your team, in general, humans and dogs, and the results will take care of themselves. And be proud of the decisions you make along the way, and make sure you make that decision in a way that you can be proud of it.
So looking ahead, what are your goals for the future of your mushing career?
I think the biggest one is I want to keep having fun mushing dogs. I love developing dog teams. I love working with dogs. I love training dogs. I love experiencing life out in the wilderness with dogs. And I want to keep growing as a musher. Zooming out a little bit, I want to become the best dog musher I can possibly be. And to this point, that's certainly been in the Iditarod. It has driven me to improve, to get better at what I'm doing. When people beat us in the races, this is a great opportunity to see that it can be done better and to learn from them. And when we have a hard time racing, even if we end up beating that person, it doesn't really matter. There's still things we can learn from them, right? So I've been absorbing information and trying to learn from all our competition. And the race has driven me to improve. And I want to keep doing that. Sometimes that's on a race. There's some expedition things I would love to do with a dog team. And I think that would push me to learn more about dogs in a different realm, in a different field. So right now, I haven't decided whether or not I'm racing the Iditarod next year, but I do know I will be working with dogs. I'm going to continue learning about dogs and training dogs, and we'll see. So my goal is to keep having fun with dogs, and hopefully when I'm 90-something years old, sitting on the porch and can't do it anymore, I can look back at a life that I didn't just keep doing the same thing over and over and learning the same things. I want to keep broadening that knowledge. And so I want to make the choices that lead us to a place that I can comfortably sit on the porch at 90 and say, hey, we did everything we could, and we learned as much as we possibly could, and we sure had some good times with sled dogs. So we're going to use that as our driving principle. If that means running the Iditarod again, awesome. If it means doing something else with dogs, awesome. There's no wrong path there.
Is there anything you would like people to know about you?
I like cats. True fact. I don't know where he is right now, but usually as soon as I sit down and I'm doing something on the computer, he's right on my lap. No, I don't know. I don't think there's anything in particular that we want people to know about us. I just like doing what I'm doing and having fun with it, and that's why we do it. Not because we want people to walk away with a certain impression or anything else. I like doing what I do, and we try to do it to the best of our ability.
Finally, we have the Iditarod Fast 5. We have 5 different Iditarod topics. We would like you to try to answer as fast as you can.
Oh no. I'm going to need more coffee.
Your favorite musher?
Allie Zirkle.
Favorite Iditarod book?
I'm not answering this one very fast, am I? All right, it's actually a photo book. I think it's called The First 10 Years, and it's a photo kind of book of the Iditarod, like a coffee table book. And that has some really cool pictures of like the beginning of the Iditarod.
Your favorite checkpoint?
I really like Cripple. It's probably my favorite checkpoint.
Favorite volunteer?
Whoever checks me into Nome.
Favorite former champion?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I don't think I can pick a favorite one. Sorry, I'm going to have to abstain. I feel like all of the past champions, there's something we can learn from. And believe me, I've studied them all. I'll say this one just to be controversial. Doug Swingley. Not for personality or character or any of that stuff, but I think he saw things in these dogs that a lot of us didn't. And I think it's a great reminder that when so many of us can get into the same groove of this is what they can do, and we learn from each other, but we don't think for ourselves, that it stagnates growth because we can only learn at the rate that everybody else is learning. Doug Swingley did a lot of things wrong, but he also was not from the mushing world. He came in from the outside. He came in with his own sports background, and he looked at it for himself and came up with ways of doing it for himself. And to be fair, he was nearly untouchable for a long time because he honestly saw what the dogs could do. He listened to the dogs, and he made up his own mind on a lot of things rather than just, doing what everybody else had always done. And I feel like that part of my racing career stems from having learned that from him. And I've learned things from every Iditarod champion. Some of it's what not to do, some of it's what to do. But I don't know that I could pick one favorite champion, but I think he's one of the ones I learned a lot from.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show today.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And the amazing questions. Very good questions.
Special thanks to our guest, Dallas Seavey, for being on our show this week. If you enjoyed this episode, please stop by iTunes and leave us a review. It helps with our ratings. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or people you'd like to hear on the show, email us at huskytalk1@gmail.com. If we hear from you or you leave a review, we will read it on the show.
We would like to also give credit to Hobo Jim for our intro song, the Iditarod Trail song, and our outro song, Reddington's Road.
They call this race the Iditarod Trail. To me, it's Reddington's Run. In my heart, it's Reddington's Run.